And Nick, you finished your animatic?
I think so. I might have to. I submitted it what I got for
There's a version up there to download?
Yeah.
Okay.
As I was listening to the voice recording, I think that put it together best for what I had an idea for.
Okay, we'll look at it a sec.
I'm just finishing up some of the assets.
Okay, good.
I have three I think I need to finish.
Caitlin, did you get an animatic up?
I'm in the middle of it.
Okay, try and get that going.
First one is I'm finishing my design brief.
Oh, good. Cool.
Hello everyone, this is Fabio here. I have a question about the Uniglow effect. For some reason, after I applied this effect to my jellyfish, this effect, every time that I play the timeline, it starts flickering like that. I don't know what to do to turn it off. Is it something that I can do about it? Please let me know. Thank you so much and have a great evening. Bye-bye.
I think that might be in the effect. Let's look here. I might need to reload After Effects. Yeah, my window is toast. Let me close this. Close After Effects. Let's see, if I just make a new shape with the Uniglow on. Yeah, Fabio, I'm not getting that flickering. make sure, like we talked about on Monday night, I would use the Uniglow in an adjustment layer rather than putting it on each individual layer. That may be contributing to some of that. So try that. But yeah, it doesn't seem like Uniglow has a parameter that's animating here as far as I can tell. Yeah, I think it may just be from having a bunch of them. I would just put one Uniglow on an adjustment layer above all the other ones. Give that a shot first.
Hello everybody, my question was on the sound effects portion of the color scope. I was wondering how I can check if the sound effects I was wanting to use will be available, because I don't want to plan on having be buzzing if I'm not going to be able to have that. Thank you.
Yeah, Zach, you have to download the sound effects. You can search the folder once you download it. The download link is in there. Let me pull it up. Yeah, so Zach, you can download the whole folder here. This is a big download, so do it overnight. So download this, then you have them all on your computer, and then you can just search the folder for what is available in there.
Hi, Mr. Farina. So I noticed during the rest of the week that we don't have any more of these online question things. Is that because the semester is ending, or have you just not gotten around to putting it in? Thank you.
Yeah, because the semester's ending. So, we've only got 2 weeks as of Monday. So everybody who hasn't turned things in, there's only 2 weeks left as of Monday, right? So it would be bad enough if you're behind on the Color Scope project, but if you're missing other things, it's really going to be very, very, very difficult to get caught up.
Hi class, hi Casey.
Hello.
This week
What a microphone.
I'm working on the compilation thing where we show off a bunch of stuff we made during the class. Yeah, again, I don't really have a lot of major issues that I'm running into. I just kind of adjust all these and make some transitions and stuff like that. One question I have though is I masked out this this clip right here at the beginning, like you did in your tutorial video, or I guess a walkthrough video. But is there a way to blur out this hard edge, the mask, so it's not just like appears just like cut off like that? I tried messing with the blurs like on the right side right here, and I haven't really found the effect that I'm looking for. Usually it just blurs the entire image, but I want just this edge to be blurred so it doesn't look like I just cut this off with like scissors or something. Yeah, and that's about me. That's about it for me. I'm just working on this. Also, working on my design brief, picked out some colors. Yeah, working on two things at the same time. That's really about it for me. Thank you, Casey. And I'll see you later.
Yes, in After Effects, if I mask something, for instance this layer, there we go. That was not a mask. That was making a shape because I have shape selected there. I want a mask. There we go. And so now the reason it looks kind of blurry right now is because of this effect. I'll turn the effect off. Under masks, there is feather, and that blurs the edge of the mask, just like you're asking. So that feathers out the edge of the mask.
Okay, so I didn't have too much of an issue this time around. I will say though is that my assets, I did get all of them done, luckily. It's just a matter of actually getting things to move and such. I did decide I wouldn't be using anything really 3D this time. because I tried making the eye coin thing with like the flipping coin,
Okay, so
3D thing, and I couldn't figure it out and I got confused.
so I went over that on Monday when I looked at your assets, and also you have to use something that's 3D, that's part of the assignment. Like you got to at least use similar to 4D for one thing, but we went over using your eye as something on a coin on Monday. There's a couple other people looking to do something like that, so you know what, we might look at something like that again here in a minute.
And I couldn't do it. So I just settled on making it a 2D thing that I'm able to flip around and move. So I'm sorry, but the one thing I might have made 3D ended up failing
Right, so you got to make something 3D.
in absolute disaster.
Right, so maybe think of something else to make 3D.
And my computer was having trouble loading it, so I just decided not to. Otherwise, I think, well, I know I do have everything ready for me to actually make everything, but other than that, it's just a matter of putting the scenes together, and I think I'm only going to be doing scenes 1 and 2 this week if I remember the assignment anyways. So I do have everything ready. I do have to pick music though. That's the one thing I'm missing is background music, because I need to find free Creative Commons music. Otherwise, I do have everything here in my folder for my final animation. So hopefully it'll go smoothly, and hopefully I can get all these assets to work. I feel like there was something, well, there's the plain coins. I'm just gonna copy and paste that at different sizes because I felt like making a bunch of differently sized coins when I could just resize them would be a bit much. But I also made multiple types of hieroglyphics in different colors to make sure they stood up against the background. So I think I'm okay.
Okay, so yeah, we'll go over the coin thing again in a couple different ways.
This week, I had an issue with Cinema 4D where it wasn't really that much of an issue. It was just really weird. I had set the frames to be rendered from 0 to 120, which is how I set it in the Cinema 4D viewport, but it actually rendered 97 frames instead of the expected 120. So I thought that was strange, so I increased it to 150 frames to render a full 120 frames. But then the animation didn't actually last that long. Like the ending was too long because it rendered more frames than needed. So it was just something weird I had with Cinema 4D. I don't know what that's about. That's it for this week. Thank you.
So Max, first of all, in After Effects, make sure that you are setting 24 FPS when you import your image sequence, right? So if I go to import to something here, this image sequence, for instance, I got to make sure I right-click and say interpret footage main 24 FPS. Then you probably have a problem in Cinema 4D. You did the right thing in your render settings and changed this to 24. However, I have a feeling that your project settings, when you Control D, are not 24. And so you've got to change that to 24 as well, so that that'll make sure that whatever the amount of frames is you think you're rendering are the amount of frames that you're actually rendering. So all three of those things need to be set to 24 in order to keep everything the correct amount of time going between programs.
All right, sorry for my.
Actually, let me look at Max's stuff here. Okay, so this is the pillar that you did in Cinema 4D. Cool. Right, so it just kind of animates up into the scene. Seems like having this spin around would probably be a good idea. And then it's reading a little bit as trash can, not pillar. And so you might need to put a couple more layers of, like, it seems like this top part needs to be a little more ornate. for this to read as pillar and not trash can, right? Just this is good for the middle part, but there needs to be some more. It could even be like kind of a block up here, or it could be multiple layers of this, something like that, to make this look more like an actual pillar. Let's look at some of these. Oh yeah, here's the C4D file. Let's look at this. Yeah, so even stacking some other cylinders here perhaps might do the job, right? So if these were out a little bit bigger. And then making sure that I put some rounding on the caps there. Maybe a little bit more rotation segments. There we go. So this would be something that then I could bring up here and bring this out a little bit. Right, something to get this to start to read more as like an architectural feature and not just, you know, it just doesn't look quite grand enough. And then, you know, you could, once you have one, right, making many is not too hard, right? So this could come down here. So rotate this. There we go. All of this stuff can come under here. Right there, that reads more as like a pillar. And a pillar here, instead of just having the pillar come up onto the screen, the pillar is an architectural feature. So having one by itself, that also makes this read as trash can, right? Whereas like we're used to seeing this in an architectural context. And so in this case, you know, you're using, cool, you've got the luminance with the cell shader on, very nice. I mean, it would make more sense to me to make more of like a building, right? Which you could do with these things. And so you could, for instance, set, I mean, it would just be a lot more visually interesting. You now could sort of just control drag these things, right? And so I've got a row of them, and now I could take this row of pillars here and duplicate the row, and move this over, and move this over, right? It's not a research paper. It's supposed to be visually compelling. And so if you're looking at your stuff and it looks visually uninteresting, thinking of different ways that you could present the same thing, right? So now I have something where if I move the camera a little bit, right, because we know how to move cameras now. And let's look through this camera. Let's look through this camera. There we go. And so now maybe, you know, now if I say pillar and I animate this camera sort of moving from here to there, I'm going to get rid of these keyframes. Shh. There we go. So now, I don't know if there's a floor there. There we go. This is looking way more interesting and cinematic now. What does this look like if I render? Nice. You can tell if with a floor, maybe these lights should have shadows. There we go. That's looking way more interesting, right? And so now I could move this camera. Here, and go ahead and set a keyframe there, and set a keyframe over here at the end for the camera, right? And now I'm getting parallaxing, and movement of everything. Like this looks like way more interesting of a shot. So I like that a lot better. Let's see here. What did my other stuff open? Cool. Man, the color is way off on this other screen. Yeah, that looks good. You got your sword, chalice. Are those coins? I think. Those look good. Okay, so this, I don't remember the scene in particular, right? So, okay, you've got this rig so this person can raise their hand. That looks good. I would encourage you to make this look more like, I would focus on the form rather than the face. It's okay for these things, I think, not to have faces, but they should probably have necks, you know, so that it looks a little bit more, I think that would help the look of it a little bit there. I think it's okay. If you look at some of the color scope examples, like there's figures without faces. Yeah, same. This looks good. What I would do here is separate. Make sure that this, it's hard to tell, or actually I can look. Are these on separate layers? They are on separate layers. Cool. So I would, because you're going to be able to sort of arrange these in 3D, so you can have a little bit of parallaxing in your scene. Let's do it. Let's bring it in and see how that looks. Right. So this is scene 1 max, and so over here. Let's bring this in. There we go. And I'm going to say new composition. Okay, so if you this goes for everybody who has a scene in I don't think I brought this in. Like, so if you're sort of depicting an entire place. If I bring this in, I want to make sure it's not footage, that it is a composition, because I want to have access to the layers. There we go. And so now I should be able to bring these down. Great. We don't need, let's hit V, let's get rid of this back one here. That's your sketch. Okay, I see. Can't read these layer names. There you go. There we go. And so here, in order to make this a little bit more interesting again, I'll go ahead and make these 3D layers by clicking that cube and maybe move the background back a bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a camera. So again, right click, camera. And now if I move this camera, I can put the camera at the top. Position. We should get a little parallaxing between these two things. Actually, you know what? We need a slightly different kind of camera. I'm going to say new camera again. And let's say 1 node camera. There we go. And here's my background. I'm going to move that further back under position. So I move it way far back, but then I scale it up. And so now if I move this camera position, there we go, we get some parallaxing side to side. Let's do the same thing with the buildings. And so I'll grab this building, hit V. Move this building over, move this building over, move this building over a little bit. This one's got to come down a little bit. There we go. And take these buildings and also hit P and then move them back in space so they're back behind. Might need to become a little bit bigger. All right, and again, if I move the camera now, I can get, I can pan the camera here. We don't want to see the edge of these things. And so we can't move the camera that much unless we scale stuff up a little bit. Right, so again, sort of doing that. Might need to come down a little bit. In our foreground river, which is somewhere around here. All right, so now if I move this, you see I can scale things, move this, and there's a difference in speed of motion between the foreground and the background. It's much more interesting. Cool. Good start, Max. Revisit the pillar stuff.
Alright, sorry for my background, but okay, so the main question that I have this week is on this pumpkin, because essentially my color scope is going to be orange, but the only thing is that I actually want to essentially put a light inside that will be shining out, and maybe you could see the light like an orange or like kind of yellowish light, but more closer to orange, come out of the pumpkin, because I need it for a segment of one of my scenes to come out, so we could see the light essentially. But I'm not too sure how to do that. I tried these, but I'm not too successful on this, so that was my question for this week. How can I bring out the light inside to come out of the pumpkin, and it could be, you could see it. So yeah, that's my question for today. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, so what you need is called volumetric lighting. Let's make a sphere. I'm going to add some thickness to it with the cloth surface. So I'll put this in here. And under thickness, I'll say, just dial that up a little bit. And then I'll cut a hole in it with a cube. And I'll move this cube forward like so. And I can use a Boolean to cut a hole in this. So here and here. Flip them around. There we go. All right, so now I got a thing with a hole in it. You're gonna, for any scene to look correct, you're gonna want at least two lights. One on the outside that's casting a little bit of light. Let's do that one. I'm gonna make an infinite light, which I rotate. And so let's rotate that kind of like this, over, up. There we go. And let's say that this is going to have soft shadows. So under shadow, soft. Let's look at that. There we can see it. And then under shadows, let's make these less dense, maybe 50. There we go. And let's make the light not as bright. Turn that down. Cool. Now the light inside, I'm going to go ahead and make a point light. Light, which is just a light bulb light, and that is inside. And the thing that makes light come out of the opening is called volumetric lighting. My zoom is not on. Here it is. Volumetric lighting. And so in this light here, I'll make it a little bit orange. There we go. And under shadows, I'll say soft. And then under visible light, I will say volumetric. And now if I render, I get light coming out of that opening because the light is inside. And so here I can, if you see it's kind of noisy, and under the visibility sample distance, if I make that smaller, like 5, I think it should be nicer. Yeah, there we go. That's not taking forever to render, and it looks okay. And so now I've got light coming out of there. And I could make it look like a candle a little bit just by maybe animating some of the intensity. I could sort of animate some keyframes here up and down to, you know, sort of make it look like it's flickering, or give it some more color coming out of there. The other thing you might want to do is on the material that you're using for the pumpkin is its color is orange. Sure, kind of like that. And then give it a little bit of luminance. So under luminance, I'm going to change this to also orange. There we go. And just by default, that's way too bright. But if you take the luminance and you just dial it down a little bit, there we go. It seems like it is lit up a little bit from the inside. It's the easiest way to sort of fake that sort of look. And the density of this volumetric light is controlled here on the light. Again, if we go to visibility, we turn down the sample distance, brightness, dust, inner distance, fall off. I think our brightness here, if I make this 500, what does that look like? Yeah, there we go. That gives us more intensity here inside the cutout. Cool. There you go, George. Let me know. What do you think about that?
So I don't have any questions this week. It was pretty easy. I just did the same thing I did last time, and I just took my sketches and kind of like made the images on top of them and referenced them. The only thing I did differently was with the bird. I ended up just looking up some reference images to make it a little bit more detailed and accurate. And then I made sure to match the hex codes, like with the colors I was using, while I was making them to make sure they're accurate. But yeah, pretty easy and fun.
Yeah, and Kaylee, it looks like the bird wing is on a separate layer, so you can flap it. That's good. I talked about the waves. I think you're going to need to revisit that, but the rest of it looks pretty good.
Hey guys, so my question this week is how to do a specific transition animation for my coaster project. I'm going to play the video here. I want to be able to do this transition here with the sun on the orange color scope example that we're doing. So I was wondering what would be the best way to do that sun, specifically the sun and then the window coming in. Would I do like a zoom out scaling effect and then just adjust the opacity? Thank you.
So Ron, you want that to be 2 scenes, but then in the window scene, the other one would be a comp. So for instance, here's our window scene. I'm going to go ahead and make just a solid. And then I will select this, let's say rounded rectangle, and make sure that I am in mask mode, kind of like this. We want the opposite, so I'll just say invert this. There we go, now I have a hole. Great, and so we'll call this window comp. All right, let's make the other one. And so now call this sun. We'll make a sun of some kind. There we go. Kind of like this. And then I believe there were some layers of waves or something. And so on the sun, let's make this a little bit orange. There we go. And then let's label this. Let's make another one for, again, this is probably coming in from, there we go. Waves, just click, click, drag, click, click, drag, click, click, drag, click, click, drag, click, click, drag. Waves. And let's seal off this shape. There we go. Cool, we'll call this waves 1. Paying attention to the color of the waves in that example. Let's look at that. Yeah, so it kind of moves up while those come up. And so let's go ahead and get the final frame. So I'll get this and Control C, Control V. Move this one down, maybe scale it up a little bit. Make it a little bit darker. There we go. Make another one. This one a little bit brighter. Kind of like that. Okay. And then there's probably a solid. There we go. A lot of this is very hazy and mixed together. So new adjustment layer. Let's give it a Gaussian blur. This can help really bring everything together. And switch it to, let's go to blend modes. Let's say overlay. Yeah. Lighten. Okay. I don't want any outlines on this stuff. 0. There we go. That's better. And in the Gaussian blur also, always say repeat edge pixels so you don't get that weird stuff on the edge. And let's just go back to normal, but dial down the opacity. There we go. That gives us more of like a haze. I like that. Cool. Anyways, things are here. So they end up here. I'm going to go ahead and let's make all of this stuff 3D. And I'll move the sun. And look at the positions for all of these things. And let's move the sun back. And then this wave back. This wave forward a bit. And this wave forward some more. Maybe up a little bit. Yeah, so they kind of end up here. And so right about here, let's trim up this comp. Now that's where I want all these things to be, so I'll keyframe the positions for all of them. Maybe right about there. There we go. And now it starts off before that, and these waves are further down. And so let's move them all kind of down out of, kind of want them to sequence up. And so maybe one at a time. This one's down. This one's down. And then again, let's go ahead and make a new camera. Position on the camera. Yeah, so we'll start fairly zoomed in here. And I'll keyframe the camera. And then by the time we get to here, we want to be out right about there. There we go. And so now if we look at those things together, all right, and let's look at the specifics of this. So it's there. And so I think you can get away with a lot here. So there's this scene, we're seeing this come up. And then we wanted to move, and I'm going to make this animate a little bit slower. So I'll move these over. They're all linear right now, which is not great at all. Let's grab all of them and ease all of this a bunch. In fact, we go to keyframe velocity. I'm going to say like 80 to really give us a programmatic ease. Let's see what that looks like. There we go, nice and smooth. I like that. And as that's happening, we want the other one to come in on top of it. So our sun comp here and our window comp, you can put the window comp and so by putting this in the window here, and we see where this let's look at the source again. Yeah, it's pretty tricky. So if you look at this, it's very subtle. And the background really goes away once that's there. And so let's get I'm gonna make one more solid. Let's make it white. There we go. Put this below the orange, right? And again, another new adjustment layer. And let's go ahead and say another Gaussian blur here. And dial this in, sort of get that glow from the window. And all of this, again, same kind of thing. You can scale this. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-comp all of this, pre-compose. Call this window. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and scale this up. Move the position a little bit. And I'll hit keyframe the scale. And then very quickly, you could do this with a camera or just with scaling the window. Again, let's grab all these keyframes and really ease them. That's part of it here. Keyframe velocity, or let's say easy ease first, keyframe assistant, easy ease, keyframe velocity. We'll do 80 again. There we go. I think with a little bit of opacity coming in, right about there, just a few frames. Let's put it at 0. And here with the window, you know what I'm going to do under the white? I'm going to dial down the opacity here. Because back up here, that way we can see through that. And when we're scaling here, we'll just scale the other one. And so I'll hit S. So that seems like it's also scaling in between there. And give us this sense of parallax. So let's go to keyframe velocity, easy ease. 80, 80. Oh, I just have both of these selected. That's what's going on. And so here, 80. This one. There we go. Back these off a couple frames maybe. So you can play with the timing there, but that gives you the basic structure. Something see-through over the top of the window, and the basic, mock-up of what's going on there. What's that? Okay, sure. Hold on one second. Let me just enter this.
Sure. What was wrong with you? Not exactly the sentences I wanted, and then changed it just a little bit, added a bit, and I want to change. He said I spoke a little quickly.
Oh, okay.
Just slow down a bit.
Okay, so do you have it there?
Yeah, he's already sent it to me.
Okay. And did you make an animatic yet?
Yes, it's on here. I'm trying to get it to transfer up, so.
You can export as PSD files, right? PSD. You can just email them to yourself. And then, you can drag the PSD files directly into After Effects. Okay. Right. Sure, let me set up one first.